Hello and welcome to your first lesson in pre-calculus. All right, so I do just want to establish a few things when going through these lessons with everybody. So there is going to be a color coding system of what we're going to be doing together and then what you're going to be expected to do on your own. Because remember, there is that potential that I could say, hey, I'm collecting notes from lesson 1-3, and that includes the problems I assigned for you to try on your own, as well as the ones that I assigned for us to do as a class in these videos. So we are going to establish that yellow is what we're going to do together, and then pink is what you're going to be asked to do on your own. All right, so in these videos, again, like I said, if it's highlighted in yellow, we're obviously doing those together, but if I say, hey, try this one, I'm not going to go through and explain it in the video. You need to try it on your own first, and then maybe ask me for help if you're really having trouble with it, all right? So let's get started. Let's go to page 1. We're talking about lines in the plane. So this actually is a really nice little warm-up review from last year, things like from algebra. So just kind of as this warm-up, can you define what a linear function is in your own words? And what would you say? So I want you to just think about that before I reveal this. But what is a linear function in your own words, and what would you say about it? All right, so in my own words, what comes to mind is that a linear function, it's a straight line. I immediately think of y equals mx plus b, where m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. Now, you're going to see throughout this lesson, y equals mx plus b is not the only equation that we can use. There are two others that we're going to be incorporating as well. And the most important attribute about a line, about it being straight, well, what gives a line its straightness? It's that slope. We're talking about that constant rate of change. Okay, so slope, and again, these are all just the different ways of expressing slope. It's that change in y over the change in x, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So this is your average rate of change. All right, so here I'm going to actually walk through questions 1 and 3, and you guys are going to do 2 and 4. So for question 1, we're just going to sketch the segment and then identify what kind of slope it is. So I'm just going to make my sketch. All right, so that's roughly what my sketch looks like. And very easily I can see that this has a positive slope. If I asked you to actually calculate it, we would do our y2 minus y1 over the x2 minus x1. But it doesn't ask you to. It just says sketch the line and tell me the kind of slope. All right, so this is like if I was walking up a hill, walking positive. All right, and again, now I'm going to sketch for 3. I have -2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So I have -2, 3, and then I have 3, 3. And I can see that this is a flat horizontal line. This is a 0 slope. So you can just fill out what 2 and 4 look like. I want to see your sketch, but I'll post the solution, post the answer here, not the solution. You have to show me how you got this, but here should be negative, and this should be no slope. So you need to include your picture. All right. Okay. So as I said earlier, there are 3 forms of a line that we can talk about. There's slope-intercept form of a line, point slope, and then standard form. So some may be more appropriate to use than others. So for the first one with slope-intercept, these are all important definitions, guys. Slope-intercept, if a line has slope m and a y-intercept has a y-intercept of 0b, then our equation is just y equals mx plus b. So that's nothing new. Point slope, you may or may not remember from geometry. So again, if we have a line with the slope m and it contains a point, say x1, y1. So again, point, slope. We can rewrite this as y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. All right. And then lastly, for standard form for the equation of a line, that's ax plus by equals c. There are no fractions here. So just to give an example, you could have something like 5x plus 4y equals 2. Okay, an unacceptable answer would be if it's like all divided by different fractions. I don't know, whatever it ends up being. Okay, so no fractions here. Okay, And again, I just show you some examples as well of all three. So you have standard, slope intercept, and point. Believe it or not, point slope is actually going to be super important, especially if you're going to be taking calculus next year. All right, so let's just go through some examples first. Now again, still on page 2, some of the examples. So for the examples that I provided you, I say for each of the following questions, determine the most appropriate form. So really, it's going to depend on the information you're given. If you're given a point and a slope, you should use point slope. If you're given a slope and an intercept, you should use slope intercept. Okay, and if I tell you specifically, like write it in standard form, you're gonna write it in standard form. So I'm gonna do the first two with you. So we have determine the equation of the line who has a slope of 10 and an intercept of -3. So I have a slope, I have an intercept. I'm thinking of slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. I have y equals 10x minus 3, and that's it. Okay. For question 2, I'm given a slope and an intercept, but now I'm telling you write your answer in standard form. So now I'm being specific. So I want it in that ax plus by equals c form. So right now what I have currently is y equals -2x plus 5 over 4. So currently they gave it to me in slope-intercept form, but I want this. So first off, what I'm going to do, because remember, standard form, there are no fractions allowed, I'm going to multiply everything here by 4. So I have 4y equals -8x plus 5. We're going to bring over that 8x, so I have 8x plus 4y equals 5. And we're done. There is my standard form. All I did was just add the 8x to both sides. Okay. Hopefully that was simple. All right, we're going to take a look at 3 together. As you can probably tell, I'm going through each example. That first one was slope-intercept form. The second one was standard. And now, what do you think comes next? We're going to write the equation of a line who has a slope of a half and goes through the point. Now, I don't specifically tell you what form to write it in, but I give you a point and a slope. So I'm thinking point slope form. So we're just going to write it like that. I'll have y minus 2, because I'm looking at my y value. That's 2. I'll try to color code all this here for you. Equals m. So my slope is a half m times x minus x1. And minus x1, which is so minus 1. And that's my equation. I can just leave it like this. Y minus 2 is equals a half times x minus 1. So if you want to keep all of this the same, this is my 1/2, and then the 1 comes from here. Okay. So now if we're talking about parallel and perpendicular lines, so we have parallel lines. We know that the slopes are going to be the same. Perpendicular lines, we're going to have negative reciprocals of each other. Now, some of you may have heard the word opposite reciprocals. It's the same thing. You could also have said opposite reciprocals. Okay? So let's just do a few practice problems. And like I said, I'm going to assign problems for you to do totally on your own, and you can check them with me later. Okay, so for our first problem, we want to find the slope-intercept form. So very nice, slope-intercept form of the equation of the line that passes through this point and is parallel to this line. Okay, well, we want it to be parallel. So parallel, we know the slopes have to be the same. So let's see. Well, I want to identify first what is the slope of this line. So let's see. I have 2x minus 3y equals 5. I want to get y by itself. We're going to identify what the slope is. So I have -3y equals -2x plus 5. Divide everything by -3. Okay, so in this scenario, I have -2 over -3, so the slope is 2/3. That's all I cared about from this equation, was just to get the slope. Now, what we want to do is, using this slope, we want to have it run through this point, but we want it written in slope-intercept form. So now, If I wasn't told what to do, I would have done point slope. But the question specifically says use slope intercept form. So I'm going to write first off, I'm going to start off in point slope and then get it down to slope intercept. So point slope says I have y minus my y1, negative 1, is equal to my slope of 2/3 times x minus 2. I really have y plus 1 equals 2/3 x minus 4/3. I'm going to subtract 3 over 3 because 1 is really 3 over 3. Subtract that on both sides. And I have y equals 2/3 x minus 7 over 3. Listen, guys, you're in pre-calc. We really don't use the calculator all too much. A lot of this has to be done by hand. Okay? So, for instance, knowing that 1 can be rewritten as 3 over 3, like we have to have that kind of common sense thinking, all right? So we're going to just try to retrain the brain to think that way. Okay. So that's my final answer. Y equals 2/3 x minus 7/3. We found the slope that was parallel to this line. Using that slope, I was given a point on the line here, and I want it in slope intercept form. So because I wanted it in slope intercept form, I was given a point and a slope. I went this route first with point slope and then brought it down to slope intercept. Several ways you guys could have done this. This is not the only way to go about doing it, but as long as you get your final answer to be the same. For question 2, we want to now find the slope intercept form of the equation of a line that passes through the point to -1, and now it's perpendicular. Okay, so I already got this in slope intercept form here, so I'm just going to rewrite. We already did this, so they're the same exact problem, just now it wants it perpendicular. So we know we had y equals 2/3 x minus 5 over 3. If I want it to be perpendicular, we want the negative reciprocal. So the negative reciprocal will be -3 over 2. We flip it. And now I'm going to use this slope with this point to get it into slope intercept form. Because I have a point and a slope, I'm going to start off with point slope, where I have y minus -1 is equal to -3/2, because there's my slope, times x minus 2. Okay, I have y plus 1 equals -3 over 2x, distribute, plus 6 over 2, which is just 3. And I'm just going to subtract the 1 on both sides. So I have y equals -3 over 2x plus 2. And there's my equation. Find the slope-intercept form of the equation that passes through the point and is perpendicular, all right, to the line. So there you go. Let's flip over to the next page. So now we're on page 4. Okay, and on page 4, I would like you to try questions 2, 4, and 5 on your own. Again, I'm going to post what the final answer is, but you need to provide the solution, so the worked out solution. All right, so again, if I'm collecting notes on this day's lesson, these would not be acceptable solutions because you just copied what's on my screen. I need you to actually give this a try and practice these. All right, make sure you're reading directions, guys. If it doesn't say it has to be in a certain form, you can choose however you would like. So just a little hint here for question 2. Write the equation parallel to this line and passes through this point. I'm probably going to go point slope. It didn't tell me how to write it. Okay, so give those a try. Okay, and then just the last few that I'm going to show you that I'm going to do with you. Question 7. All right, so I have, let's see, write the equation of the line perpendicular to this line and passes through this point. So first thing, I need to figure out what the slope is. So we have 5x minus 2y equals -3. We want to get y by itself. I'm going to figure out what that slope is and divide everything by -2. So I have y equals 5 over 2x plus 3 over 2. Here is my slope, but I want the perpendicular slope, so m perpendicular will be -2/5 because we take the negative reciprocal. It doesn't tell me how to write it, guys, so I'm going to go with point slope because I have a point and a slope. So I'm going to write, I have y minus -1 is equal to my slope of -2/5 times x minus 2. This is really just y plus 1 equals -2/5 times x minus 2. And that's it. I'm going to leave my answer like that. Okay, last one that I'm going to show you is number 9. So we have express in y equals mx plus b form the equation of a line perpendicular to this one and passes through this point. So I have, again, I'm going to get y by itself. So I have -3y is equal to -5x plus 8. All I have to do is just subtract the 5x to the other side. So, right, minus 5x minus 5x. We're going to divide everything by -3. And I have y equals 5/3 x minus 8/3. We want it to be perpendicular. So even though this is my slope, I want the perpendicular slope. So m perpendicular is going to be -3/5. All right. And we want it to go through this point, but I want it, now be careful here, sadly I can't just leave it as point slope. They want me to leave it in y equals mx plus b form. So I'm going to write, I have y minus 1 is equal to -3/5 times x minus -5. We're going to simplify. I have -3/5 x. This is really a plus. And then -3/5 times 5 is -3. I'm going to add over my 1. And there's my final answer. Y equals -3/5 x minus 2. Now, I will say that 10 and 11 are optional. So I did say that I'm going to make green optional in our whatchamacallits, in our dolls. So if you really want to give some kind of challenging problem to try 10 and 11, and I'll post the answers here, but you don't need to do these. So these are not required, but the pink ones are. So I'm just going to write my final answer here for 10 and 11, but you don't have to do them. All right, and then there are your answers for 10 and 11 if you decide to do them, but don't forget, you have to go back and answer the questions that were highlighted in pink and get started on that Delta math assignment. All right there, everybody. I hope you found this video helpful. Ask me any questions you have via email if you do have any. And don't forget, Zoom extra help is available for pre-calculus on Wednesdays. Talk to you later.